What's up, Internet? You're tuning to episode 110 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Stephen. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
We got a juicy week for us this week. You know, like there's so much news that it was a challenge putting this episode together. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, there was a lot of news, a lot of stuff that we're gonna shift. That's kind of like evergreen stuff down the line. But
I put together a 6-page document for a main topic we are not doing today because
one thing I do want to touch on from that is just to say, wherever you end up, John Riccatello from Unity, please do good things this time, not bad things like you did at EA and Unity. Just do good with the world.
Just learn your lesson, you know. Well, yeah. So we've got plenty to talk about, and we straight up polled you, the listener, to hear what stories you wanted to hear about the most. So if you're upset with the topic choice, guess what, Jack? It's your own fault. We're gonna kick things off. We're gonna talk about the brand new look for the PlayStation 5. Of course. We talked about this a few weeks ago on the podcast. I'm a little hazy on exactly how long ago it was.
It was a good while ago. It was like a couple of months at least.
Months, right?
Yeah. Because since then we've had like the Spider-Man special edition that they've been plugging. There's been tons of like discounts on the current PlayStation 5. You could get it for like the cheapest price that it's ever been. It was like under $400. It's under $400 at certain points. It was like, you know, you could get these things for pretty cheap if you knew where to look.
Yeah. If you were keeping an eye out, there were deals to be caught for sure. And again, we had a leak, right? Like we saw the case. You know, we had a pretty good idea of what this device was going to look like, and yeah, I mean it's all proven true, right? Like we have the new design here today, and it looks very much like, you know, what we kind of expected based on the leaks that we'd seen. And yeah, I feel like broadly, it's a pretty good look. You know, I think it maintains a lot of the identity that I think the, you know, kind of original box.
Yeah, still like the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings. Still got that vibe, you know.
Which, like, you know, I mean, I know not everybody's a fan of, but I am.
I think they have taken that console and they've made it even uglier. If you don't get the digital edition now, it looks like it's got a big old hump on the side. It looks even worse than it did before. It's like now
like more or less what it looked like.
It was like more smoothed out. This time it's just like bam, here's a box on the side.
The digital edition does look a lot sleeker, I'll give you that.
Yeah, way sleeker, but it's the one I would never want to buy because it limits my choices. I can't play PS4 discs. I've got, you know, I live in an area with really patchy internet, and it means I can put a disc in and install from it. So I am happy with the move in general. I think it's good that you can now buy the digital edition and upgrade. I feel really sorry for people who bought the digital edition first time around and now they're stuck never being able to upgrade it, because like that's not great. Whereas the people that buy a digital edition version now can add the disc drive later if they want to. Whereas people who bought the digital edition at launch, they can't ever upgrade that thing. They're just going to have to buy a whole new PS5.
Isn't there one that's connected with a cable though? I thought
no,
we had confirmation of that.
No, this turned out to be that you just attach this disk drive. It doesn't seem to be any cable. It just attaches onto the side when you take the side of the case off, and it just attaches on there now. But there's no like cable that goes around the back, which is what I think people presumed. So it's a real shame for people who were potentially looking forward to upgrading their digital edition that they've got. That's not going to be an option for them.
I can't imagine that that's a particularly large group of people, right? Because if you cared about a disk drive, you would have bought one with a disk drive at launch.
I know at least one person who bought a digital edition at launch because they couldn't get a disk drive version, and then has since swapped that console out. Like they sold the digital version and bought a physical.
Yeah, but I mean, like that's reasonable, right? Like you did that on purpose. I don't think that's like a consumer that's getting screwed over as much as you decided you want a PlayStation 5 now more than it mattered to get the model that you wanted forever, and you were happy to do the work to then sell it and get another one, and, like, that's cool, like, but your friend made that decision to,
Yeah.
you know, like, that was an informed decision is more what I'm saying, right? Like, not to say, like, "Oh, screw them," or whatever, right? But it's like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. It was like, I want a PS5, I wanna play Ratchet&
yeah,
and Clank at launch, I'm just gonna get whatever one I can.
yeah, which, like, respect, right? Like, you it sounds like they game the system effectively, right?
Mhm.
So for this, it's like, I don't know, like, I hear what you're saying, right? Where, like, I definitely could see that being a bummer for certain, a segment of the audience, I suppose, but I wonder how many people that actually would even apply to, because
I just think it's a shame that they haven't just given us an option to plug in a USB drive, and they've sold this proprietary thing that just, like, has to attach onto the side, because it
they
would have
love
been
that
nice.
move. They
Yeah,
love that move,
yeah, they really do love their proprietary tech over at Sony, yeah, that's for sure. I also don't like the move to glossy plastic. I fucking hate glossy
The
plastic.
mat was so nice. Yeah, that's really a shame. I don't love that, for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
and, I think it's fine that the vertical stand is now an optional extra, but if you had yours vertical, having to pay another $30 to get that is a bit of a sting, like, if you were looking to get it vertical. But I don't know that many people are gonna upgrade to this because the only difference internally, aside from it being a smaller footprint, is a slightly larger SSD. They've moved from 800 gigabytes to 1 terabyte, and I don't think that that is a big enough leap to get people to go, "You know what? I'll trade in my PS5 and
no.
get one of these slim models."
No, yeah, I don't think that's the intention of this product, right? Like, I think this exists to make the PlayStation 5 easier to produce and easier to ship, and, to create, a new standard moving forward, right? The way that every, like, "slim," quote, unquote, model, has before, right? Like, in the blog post, they talk about how it's like they reduced the volume by 30%, the weight by 18%, and 24%, compared to the previous models, right? So it's like, that's a huge difference already, right? Like, it being that much lighter saves them a ton of money on shipping and handling and all of that, right? Like, and I'm
And are
sure that,
those savings being passed on to the consumer, Pete?
no, no, they're not. So, the last thing I'll add before we get into that, right, is, if you do decide you wanna get the expandable drive that we've talked about later, that's gonna be sold for $80, in the US, €119, $100 in pounds. So,
We say quid in this country,
quid,
that's,
right, of
yeah,
course,
100 quid.
100 quid. So with that, it is, I'm trying to, so what do we got for the price breakdown here?
It works
Yeah,
out as an additional £10 in the
correct.
UK.
Okay, okay. So yeah, in the US, right, the version with the drive is $500. So that's normal, right? That's price parity with what
What it was
we,
previously, yeah.
right,
Yeah, because
right,
you didn't get the price increase that the rest of the world did, like, this is now
right.
550 in Europe and 480 in the UK.
Right, yeah. So, but now with the digital edition, the US is finally seeing a price increase. So PS5 digital edition is going to be 450, where the original, was 400, right? So, and then in Europe, it's, the with the drive is 549. With, the digital edition, it's 449. In the UK, we're looking at 479, and, for the digital edition, it's 389.
Which is exactly what it was before. We didn't get a price increase in the UK like you guys did. We already had our price increase last year, so, you escaped for a few months, but now they've come to get you.
And then, as you mentioned, right, if you do wanna get the vertical stand, it is compatible with all PS5 models, it says, which is cool, and it's $30.
And it looks way nicer, like, it's made of metal, like, I feel like this would be something I would buy if I had my PS5 vertical now.
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious on what kind of weird thing they've got propping this up now. If you have a look at the picture, it looks like a clear piece of plastic because which weirdly they host on Flickr, by the way. If you click through on the pictures, it's hosted on Flickr, which
Shout
is
out to
just like,
Flickr. Don't they own
what?
Flickr?
No, like Yahoo owned Flickr for a while. I don't
Oh,
even know
okay.
who
I was
owns
like,
it
I thought
anymore.
Sony owned Flickr.
um, they've got like a tiny piece of plastic now as the stand because this thing is still going to be wobbly when you
Yeah.
put it down. So it doesn't come with that circle thing that the current
But
PS5 has.
which I good. I hate that thing. It's so bad. It's like the worst part of the PlayStation 5 by a country mile. Um,
Hmm.
but a really important wrinkle, this is something that we talked about a ton, is they say a variety of PS5 console cover colors for the new model will be available starting in early 2024, including an all matte black colorway, the Deep Earth collection in volcanic red, cobalt blue, and sterling silver, and that the pricing for those covers will start at 54.99 USD, same in euros. It's 44.99 in the UK. So
Okay, all matte black sounds good. The other ones are going to be glossy. I can remember the last silver console they did. I think was the PS3.
yeah, but no, but forget the glossy, right? We like we said, matte better than gloss.
Yeah,
It is what it is.
100%. Yeah.
But this does answer the question we had about our covers here to stay, or is this
I don't know.
redesign going to kill them?
I
And
don't know that it does though, because I don't know that you're ever going to get another cover for your console, for example. Are they killing off the old ones and we're only going to get them for the new console now? Can
that
I get
remains
like
to be
a
seen.
black one for my console? Or I was really hoping they would keep printing the Spider-Man covers and then the next game would come out, then they would like print like a Horizon cover
Yeah.
or an Uncharted one and you could like start a collection for
And I
these.
mean, it remains to be seen whether or not they'll continue to serve the original style. I wouldn't be surprised if they would because they
It's
don't make that
plastic molds, yeah.
they don't make that many of them either, right? Like it's like it
Mhm.
can't be that difficult to make two SKUs of them, but whatever. Even if they do that, right? Even if that decision is made and like, take that for what it is. Um, we were wondering if covers would stick around and if they would exist moving forward. So it is cool to get confirmation to see that that is something that will continue to be an option moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It is nice, and I think it's good that they're shifting to this like what kind of one console that you can then add to or take away from in the future as well, which is nice.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a good move. I kind of feel like this should have been the strategy at launch, that they shouldn't have had like the two distinct models, and it should have been this drive is like an optional thing that
Yeah,
you
have it be
add
a
on and buy.
modular thing.
Yeah, because it makes so much more sense. And uh, I don't know how I feel about the price increase, especially just on the digital edition. That combined with the PS Plus price increase really feels like there's a bit of a squeeze going on. And I know that inflation's high and, companies need to make money, but man, that PS Plus price increase was brutal.
It
And I
was
know a lot of
bad.
people like cancelled
And
because of
yeah,
it.
yeah, and I mean, like, I certainly am not paying for it. I think it really damaged the value of that product in a big way. With the console, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it feels good. And not to defend you know, like corporate margins, right? But I think when you look at PlayStation, it makes sense, right? Like with inflation, because all right, generally speaking, the model for a console, right, is you sell the hardware at a loss and you make the money back on software, right?
Hmm.
That's the convention.
Unless your name's Nintendo.
Yeah, right. Or specifically the Nintendo Switch, um, which man, they really figured it out with that one. Never even cut the price of that son of a bitch, huh? But for
No, they just
most,
increased it with the OLED model. It was like a sneaky price increase.
yeah, yeah, and we thanked them for it. But anyway, uh, generally speaking, right? You sell them the box at a slight loss, and usually the ideal is they buy their first game and you become profitable, right? Because nobody's buying the console and not buying at least one game, right? So that's generally your ideal.
I think I remember reading PS4. Sony had needed 6 games. I can't remember where I read it, but it was like
Sure.
6 games was the attachment rate, and then after that, they were making money on the consoles. Um, One thing that strategy always kind of had baked in, though, historically, was Sony would release their slim model, and that was the time that we saw the price decrease usually. Like we saw that with the
Mhm.
PS3, the PS4, the PSP, the PS Vita, all of those consoles, even the PS2, right? They all had their like slim versions of the console, and that would be the cheaper model. We have not seen that this time around, even though shipping's presumably cheaper. It's probably going to cost less to manufacture because it's smaller and they've had that die shrink already. So all of these things you would think would go to making the console cheaper, but they've kept it at a high price and have even increased it in this case.
Right. And I mean, and the reality is that that's for a reason, right? Like it's because of external market factors, right? And like again, this is the kind of thing we talk about in the Discord all the time. You know, there's a price increase, there's people laid off, they make comments about these vague external factors, and we like immediately point to corporate greed. And generally, that's correct. That's the correct instinct. However, we are right now experiencing some things that are unprecedented, that are like these macroeconomic factors that have not been a problem or even been a factor in the video game industry for a long time. So, like, just to give you, so I'm going to pull a little bit from my report that I worked on that we'll talk about in a couple weeks, right? But um, looking at what's going on with the at least the US economy, and this is true in many other countries. It's true in Europe right now. There's an inflation issue going on over there, but I'm an American, so my understanding of finances is best applied through the American dollar. So I'm going to use my country as an example. But what we're looking at, right? Uh, right now, the Federal Reserve, which is like America's, bank, um, from 2022 to 2023, interest rates have been increased by 400 basis points. So to contextualize that for you, that's one of the fastest percentage rate increases in decades. So in May specifically, the Fed raised its rates to 5.25%, which is a 16-year high.
Yeah,
And
it's identical in the UK. It's 5.25 at the moment.
there you go. So like the goal there, right, is like when you raise interest rates, it makes it more difficult for businesses to do things like borrow money and take on debt because they're having to pay back at a higher percentage on that debt or on those loans. So that obviously is going to make companies like risk averse, right? And it's going to create an environment where they're nervous about how much money they have on hand because they're inherently not able to be as flexible, right? So then you apply that to specifically Sony and what their business model is, and that the most profitable thing that they do is produce the PlayStation. The PlayStation needs to be a profit driver. And if due to, inflation, right? Like the original price point that they set and the original margin that they set of we need to sell, this many games to turn a profit, like that becomes wider. That becomes more difficult, right? As that money becomes, you know, uh more scarce because you don't have these alternative sources of revenue. If you want to say invest an extra $2 billion into development, or if you want to say
I think that's the
acquire
issue, right? It's like
a multi-billion-dollar studio.
you're spending $3 billion on Destiny, and so now you've got to hike up the cost for your consoles.
Hmm.
I think it's interesting that the price point for the disc version hasn't changed, and I think that is in large part because they don't want to be more expensive than the Xbox, which is $499. And so I think as soon as Xbox raises that price, then Sony will probably follow suit, and it will be equal in price. But the PS5 is more expensive than the Xbox Series X in the UK at the moment, but the US is the biggest market for both consoles.
Also, I did get some context here to give us like specifics on what those margins are. I've got a pull from a conversation with Bloomberg with Sony's chief financial officer Hiroki Totoki, who said that
They're acting CEO soon.
right at the time now soon to be acting CEO. interim CEO, uh, he said that the PlayStation 5 had started to turn a profit, right? And this was in a an interview back in August 2021. And he said that the 499 version of the PS5, which is the one that has the Blu-ray drive, right? Um, used to cost more to make than it earned on the market, even though it cost more. And Bloomberg estimated that in February of 2021, that the unit cost about $450 to make in parts, and that's not accounting for labor or delivery costs. So part of that was attributed to the issue of applying or of acquiring parts, because there are some parts that are used in the development of the PlayStation 5 that are also used in the smartphone market. So there's
Mhm.
volatility to the price of those materials that are required. Like some of the examples here were DRAM and NAND flash memory. And there's also the cooling system was described as unusually expensive, quote
It
unquote.
was over-engineered, it was ridiculous, and we saw the revision on the amount of copper they chopped out of that thing in the
Sure.
first revisions of the board. Like, they way over-engineered that. We got liquid metal on there, we got, like, half a ton of copper. It's like, you really don't need that. Just look at what Xbox was able to achieve. But we
Yeah.
know that the Xbox isn't profitable either
Well, so
from
again,
some
but
of the stuff that came out from the trial.
point being here, they actually got to a place where the PlayStation was profitable. So my theory is that these price hikes are to maintain that profitability and not sell the console at a loss, which is, as we stated, like that's generally what you do. But like when you have the best selling console and it's your primary driver of revenue, like the
I mean,
stockholders are going to want to keep that up.
they're still looking to make $1.8 billion of profit in 2023. So
But
it's
again,
like,
you also have to think they also just launched the PSVR 2, which was a huge failure. And
yeah.
they've invested a ton of money into these live service games, which we've talked about last week about why that is an increasingly risky strategy for them. And we think they overpaid for Bungie. So, like, it makes sense that they're not eager to shoot their golden goose, you know? And I'm not moralizing. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's irrelevant. It's business, right? But like, I think when you
I
start,
can understand that. I can understand it, but all of those figures are based on the disk drive model. I think they're stuck with the disk drive model at that 499 because of the Xbox price point. The digital version, I kind of expected to stay cheaper because it allows them to sell directly to the consumer. There's really only one marketplace. I guess the detachable drive that you can add after the fact maybe changes that up, but I can't imagine that that detachable drive is costing them $100 to make. They're probably subsidizing like the amount of profitability that they're going to make by selling it to you at 100, probably costing them maybe $30 to $50 to make that thing,
yeah,
and
but
then they're
again,
selling you at 100% margin.
you have to think though, right? Like, how much does it cost to make? But then also, what is the cost of the labor to make it, and what's the
Mhm.
cost to ship it and stock it and make it available to consumers? Those are also factors that I think sometimes, I
Yeah,
think
and
even
R&D costs as well, like, people don't
right.
factor that in.
And I think you and I like really I think try to be fair about this stuff when we talk about price. I think sometimes we fail to factor those things in. How much those things cost and how
I
much
think
they
all that
impact
makes
price.
sense. I think the stuff with the PS Plus, I really think they raised that price for 2 reasons. One is to bring shit that people don't care about, like movies. Like, do you care that movies have come to PS Plus this week? But that's now costing you double the price you were
That's
paying for PS
that's the
Plus
problem with
before?
it, is
It's like,
I think it would be an attractive feature if the price hadn't gone up. If it was just like,
yeah,
"Oh, now you just have access to movies," or if it was like, "If you'd like to
it's
access
another
movies,
option. Put it
here's
on
our,"
there.
yeah, that'd be fine, but
But, like, don't double the price to bring those features that I don't think the majority of gamers care about. The majority of gamers wanna play online multiplayer, they want cloud saves, and they maybe want a selection of games. They don't really care about movies. I don't know that the majority of people care about cloud streaming because it doesn't work very well for the majority of people. And part of me thinks that the price is that high for PlayStation Plus because a lot of people see it as an essential service and it subsidizes the cost of the console. You can keep the console profitable because you can factor in the fact that the majority of people are going to buy a PlayStation Plus subscription at least for the first year of the console, and that's now bringing you in like what is it now, $150 a year, something like that.
Yeah, if you get the higher tier. The base tier is still pretty comparable to what it
Hmm.
was, which I think is still a good value, because you get free games too, and sometimes they're actually good.
I don't know. I don't know that you do get those anymore. Do you?
Mhm. Yeah, you still get PS Plus
Okay.
games.
Yeah, Essential went up by $20. Extra went up by $35.
Yeah, like,
And
that's
then
that's a lot. That's a huge hike. Like, that's like a what? Like, that's like 25% or something like that?
and then
30%?
Premium went up $40. So it was $120 for PS Plus Premium, $10 a month seems like a decent price. It's now $159.99 for PS Plus Premium for
Come
the
on.
year.
I just don't think
But
the
that
value's there.
and a huge part of that's gotta be attributed to the fact that you now get cloud streaming and you get movies included in it, and I don't know that people really want that. Like, these should be if
Maybe
you're gonna
long
have the
term.
tiers, make them more optional, make them more like
I think the problem is, right, like, I think you hit the nail on the head where it's like, I don't think either of these features in a vacuum are, like, bad or anything that, like, people are, like, gonna be turned off by, but it's like they're not worth that level of price increase because it's like, I think about Game Pass, right, and, like, you compare the price of Game Pass, and like that's always going to be a bit of an unfair comparison because I think Game Pass is just a better service, right? Microsoft has a bigger library that they can leverage because of all these acquisitions. It's been around longer, and
about to
like,
get even bigger
yeah,
next week.
it's just it's hard to understate what a good value that is for anybody, right? I guess unless you have very specific tastes. But with this, it's like the cloud streaming of it all for Game Pass, that's free. They don't even, like, have that as, like, a selling point, right? It's like, "Oh, yeah, you also get cloud gaming," because it
Well, that
doesn't
is
really
only
work.
part of Ultimate now, so they changed things up a little bit. We've now got, like,
Yeah,
Xbox Live Gold's gone, you get, like, Xbox Game Pass Core, and
right.
then you've got to upgrade to Game Pass or, Game Pass Ultimate to get the cloud streaming. But Ultimate, I think, is such a good value. You get the online play, you
It's
get
also
PC Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, you get EA Play in there, and you get the cloud streaming, and
well,
it's all
yeah,
just, like,
and the
one
price
price point.
differential is, like, not a lot, right? Like, it's like base is what, $10 and then ultimate is 15.
Mhm.
That's a much better value than what we just talked about here. What are the prices for the tiers again? You just ran through them. What are they?
So it's $160 for premium, $135 for extra, and essential is now $80.
I mean, come on, you know? It's just like
Yeah,
I
whereas if you do pay monthly for Game Pass Ultimate, it comes out at $200, but I think you can get a slight decrease if you buy it upfront rather than
but
buying it
but
monthly.
it also just it has just more stuff on it, you know? So it's like even if it
Yeah.
costs a little bit more, it's a
Well,
better
and you know you're
service.
gonna get big games day and date. Like, I just
Yeah,
saved 70 quid because I didn't get Starfield day one. I didn't have to
exactly.
buy it, and I got
Yeah.
it for like, I'm playing it on Game Pass. About to play Forza Motorsport. It's there day and date. All the Activision stuff that's probably gonna come next week. I'm
Not
probably
not
gonna
to
download some of
mention
that.
not to mention like last year, right? Like I probably saved $80 on indie titles, right? Like from games that
Mhm.
came out there day and date and like it's like yeah, it's night and day, right? In terms of value and like what's offered. So like the fact that like you're talking about a $40 difference for the year and that you can lessen that if you pay for it a year in advance, it's like why, if you had a choice between the two, you would never pick PlayStation, right? Like it's like the only reason it
Yeah.
works is because PlayStation is the more popular console. So by default, you're more likely to be playing on PlayStation. So like if you want a service like this, yeah, great. You have the
Well,
option.
I still feel like it's so gross that you've gotta now pay $80 just to get cloud saves. It's like, that should be a feature that's built in. It's built in on Xbox, it's built in on Steam. I'm used to just buying a game and being able to have my save backed up to the cloud. I don't have that on PlayStation unless I pay $80 a year. Like, how much storage is that really taking up? They're fucking text files, it's save files. They're like If you need to, give me a maximum storage space of like 100 megabytes. But
I mean,
seriously,
to be fair, and not to defend them, they shouldn't be charging you for this shit. Nintendo charges you for it too.
I know they shouldn't be either. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
But they only charge you for some things. Animal Crossing gets a cloud backup for free, and Splatoon did as well. But it's so strange with that because it's like you've kind of got to have online anyway for Splatoon, but the cloud backups also backed up your single player save. But yeah, Animal Crossing was completely separate. If you want to move your
Yeah.
islands, you've got to download a separate app in order to move it over to a different console.
The whole thing. It's wacky, but but yeah, I mean, right? Like that's it. I don't know. And like they're like you said, like they've got like game trials now, right? Where like you can get demos and stuff. Like that's not a feature that you should be
Like
bragging.
you should be giving me a demo so I
That's
want to buy your
why
game.
buy the fucking game that you're
Yeah.
trying to sell me, right? Like it's
It's
like
like I've just downloaded shitloads of free demos on Steam, and we'll talk about it on the Steam Deck podcast this week for Next Fest. Like that's such a cool feature. I'm gonna wish list a ton of games, and then when they come out, you're gonna make money off me.
yeah,
Like I just don't get it. PlayStation, Xbox does a similar thing. Like the idea Xbox, they do like the weekends where you can
right.
download all the games for free and like try them out and give them a go.
PlayStation has done something like that in the past, but it's not like that.
Yeah, it's weird. But I
Well,
guess
for
they
what
don't need to because people are still subscribing, people are still buying the consoles.
and that's the thing. And we talk about this all the time. It speaks to the strength of the brand, right? Like the PlayStation is more popular than the Xbox. It doesn't matter that the Xbox has better services because people don't want to play there, right? Like it has a stink on it after the last couple generations. And like the PlayStation has been on the rise. They built their library there. They want to play God of War. They want to play Spider-Man. They whatever, right? Like it's like
I do think that
you're
stink's
entrenched.
gonna erode. The moment Call of Duty's free on Xbox, but I've got to pay $70 for it on PlayStation, that's when Xbox starts to look really appealing.
Yeah. I think that's already started. I think Starfield was like the first game where
Oh
people
yeah,
were like,
like
"Oh
it was
shit."
the first time I'd seen queues for people to stream on the cloud. Like this is really busy. Come like, and you're
Yeah.
queuing for like 20 minutes to play this game.
Yeah.
Like that's never happened before.
And I think you're right when it's like, "Oh, like Call of Duty's crossplay and I can play with my friends on who have it on PlayStation if I get an Xbox and I don't have to buy it every year." Like, yeah, like why wouldn't you do that, right? Especially if you're like casual and you only play it for a little bit anyway. You're like, I play through the campaign and me and my friends
Mhm.
play for a couple weeks and then, maybe we fall off or whatever. And then it's like, oh yeah, instead of $70, you spent 20 or 30, and then you turn Game Pass off. I don't know. It's pretty good, right? Like, I don't know. Like, for some gamers, it won't be enough, right? Because they'll be like, well, like, I really care about Naughty Dog. I really care about this. I really it's Sony Santa Monica. I want to play their games. I want to play the new Insomniac
Which is
Spider-Man.
fun, which is great. And
But,
I
like,
and I
for a
hope
lot of
that
people, I think it'll be a real conversation again.
the cloud streaming means that I don't necessarily need to buy a PS5 at some point. I know it's only available on the PS5, and they talk about in their blog post that they put out this week that PS5 cloud streaming is exclusively available on the PS5 console at launch. So it gives me pause that this is going to come to other things at some point. Like going to be able to stream it on my phone, on my iPad, or stream it on my Steam Deck, or stream it on my PC.
Yeah.
And then I necessarily don't, if I've got good internet, the potential of me needing a PS5 kind of goes away a little bit.
I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna wanna do that because I feel like that is such a dangerous equation for them because of just what we were talking about, right? Like, their primary driver of revenue is selling consoles and then selling you games, and, like
If I'm paying $160 a year now and I'm streaming and I don't need to buy a box and
yeah,
I'm
but
then paying you $70 a piece for a game that I'm streaming.
I don't think that works out for them in the long term. The reason that I think that strategy makes sense for Xbox is because Xbox is losing. Like Xbox is in third. So like if the alternative is I never see a dollar from you because you already own a PlayStation or you play on PC or you have a Switch or whatever, any of the millions of options you could have that never involve you buying an Xbox or playing an Xbox game, then yeah, getting your $100 a year, getting your $10 a month, even if it's for only a few, whatever, it's better than nothing, right?
Mhm.
You're expanding your user base. For PlayStation, I think it's the opposite because I think for a lot of people, I think for some of those PC gamers that we talked about, some of them buy a PlayStation because it's like, well, I want to play the
I wonder
exclusives or
how much that is true now though, because it's like, I'll just wait a year and I'll
yeah,
play it
they
when it
might come to
comes to
PC.
PC.
But it's like
And
there are a
then I
lot
can play it in 4K ultra wide and it's gonna
totally.
look the best and it's got ray
But
tracing.
I think there's a lot of gamers that don't wanna wait. They wanna play it while it's the conversation, and they'll buy it another time, and they'll play it on ultra wide and all that shit
But
later.
if the PS5's not profitable anymore at 499, why would I want them to buy a console that I'm losing money on?
That's the thing, is they just increase the price, so it probably is profitable again.
But the disc version's not.
And they're not losing money. No, the disc version is still,
They
profitable.
didn't increase the price on the disc version, they only increased the price on the digital version.
That's true. So I guess
Hiroki Totoki said
theoretically, yeah, you're right.
it's potentially not profitable. I would imagine this thing's slightly cheaper to make and ship, and they can
Yeah.
probably bring that profitability
It
back
has to
up.
be, right?
Yeah.
It weighs 18% less, so it must be at least cheaper to ship, right? So maybe that comes out in the wash. Maybe that's why that, because to your point, they're not going to make it more expensive than the Xbox. But, so maybe now they were selling it at a profit. Maybe now it's breaking even. Now it's a slight loss. Who knows, right? But either
I
way,
mean, that should be the baller move that if Microsoft can afford to eat it, which they can, they're worth almost $3 trillion, that they just reduce the price of the Series X, and they're
yeah,
just like, especially with the adorably all digital version that's due next year, like if instead of the plan, which was it was going to be the same 499 price point for, I think it was a 2 terabyte model, if they can say for the 2 terabyte model, it's now like it's 499, but they do a 1 terabyte SKU as well, and they can make that at 450, 400,
yeah,
makes the Xbox look pretty appealing.
it does.
Because it's a tough sell to sell an all digital Xbox versus an all digital PlayStation, I think. I know you've got Game Pass, but when I look at the two and I can now attach a drive later if I want to the PlayStation, I don't know if that's going to be appealing to consumers to
I
go,
think
oh, I will get the all digital version.
I think it's definitely appealing to people that care about physical, but I think that's a shrinking number of people,
Massively shrinking market. I
and
think people forget that.
I also think that there's an argument to be made that like Xbox doesn't need to be your only choice. They just need to convince you that they're worth being a second choice, even,
Hmm.
right? Like, because
Yeah,
that's a
which I think
totally
if they can
that
compete
used
on
to be a
price
thing. A
there,
lot of people used to have all three consoles. It was when Xbox was like, "Oh, we don't put out anything that's worth playing, and everything's on PC." So it's like, yeah, why the fuck would I buy one? But then it's like, all right, well, Game Pass is great, and the Xbox is not that expensive, and I could get it on Black Friday, or I could get a Series S. Like you have you have a lot of more inroads now. And to take it back to the thread that started this tangent, that's not the case with PlayStation, right? The PlayStation is the number one selling console. It's on track to beat its predecessor, which is one of the best selling consoles of all time. It's been a highly sought after item the entire time it's been available. It's been almost impossible to buy for most of the time that it's available. It's still not a thing you can just go walk in and buy in a store in most places. And like that's their business. And for them to be like, "Oh yeah, like you don't need to buy a box. It's not important."
I think that used to be their business, and I think Jim Ryan made a lot of roads to shift away from selling
Yeah, you're
boxes.
right, but I mean, but how successful have they been, right? Like,
I don't think we've seen the full fruits of their labor yet. I
you're
think the
right.
cloud streaming is going to take you that way. The live service games are going to take you that way. The PC
Of
games have
course.
been a massive
Point
hit. They've
my
been really successful for
my
them.
point here is though, right? I think that you're totally right. All of those decisions and like wanting to have more mobile offerings, all that stuff, I think all those moves are being made to diversify what PlayStation as a brand is so that they're not totally wholly dependent on selling boxes to people
It's got to become a
forever.
service rather
Yeah,
than hardware.
but right now it's not. Right now, that is not the game. Hardware is the game. And the only reason we even entertain the idea that hardware isn't the game is because of Xbox. And Xbox has stated, right? Like Phil Spencer has said, the only reason they did any of this shit is because they are a perpetual number third for the last two console generations after being the market leader. And they are trying to claw their way back to relevancy and accept that right now, there isn't a way to do that that isn't a long play. And that's acquiring these studios, it's forging relationships with, these third party and indies and getting all these people on board with Xbox and making Xbox a more desirable place to play so that
Hmm.
eventually they can point and be like, what do you mean we're not as like we have You want exclusives? We have Starfield. We have Call of Duty stuff. We have this. We have that. We have this. We have that. And like that's what they're doing right now. They're building a war chest and they're trying to form a new identity as something more than just the competitor to PlayStation.
They're trying not to be a box, which is weird considering their name is Xbox. They're trying to be a service, and you can play wherever you want. That's their big thing. That's Phil Spencer's big talking point all the time. It's just like play however you want, wherever you want. We don't care. You know, we want Game Pass everywhere. I think that is going to be the strategy with the PlayStation 5 cloud streaming stuff. I think if they don't have to sell your box, fine. Maybe you have to buy some exclusive hardware for it. Maybe you have to buy a DualSense, or maybe you have to buy the PlayStation Portal in order to be able to do the cloud streaming. But I think the fact that the line is available on PS5 console at launch, I think it is going to come elsewhere. They already had PlayStation Now on PC. That was a thing for a long time. You can still do that.
Yeah.
I think if you bring cloud streaming to PC, I don't think it's really going to be the end of
I
the
could
world
see
for them.
them I could see them bring that to PC, but it's like I think that is such a like I don't know. I don't know. Like
But I
to
think
your
I'd rather
point,
have people in the PlayStation Network playing Fortnite on their phone on the PlayStation cloud streaming rather than doing it on the Xbox cloud
yeah,
streaming.
that's true. I guess to your point, as long as they're not putting things out day and date, then I guess they're not really adjusting the strategy.
I mean, the games that they say are available for PlayStation Plus Premium members are Resident Evil 4, Dead Island 2, Genshin Impact, Fall Guys, and Fortnite. So
Right.
I don't think they've got any real concern here. They even mentioned Mortal Kombat 11 instead of Mortal Kombat 1. So
Right, exactly.
it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I mean maybe you're right. Maybe that's why that's okay. But then I guess like the question becomes, does anybody care about that on PC if that's all that it has to offer? Because it's like that's not what Game Pass is, right? You get Game Pass because you're like, I want to play Starfield, I want to play Halo, I want to play
Yeah, I really wish it was like I
Pentiment.
buy a game and I can stream it. Like that was Stadia's model. Like give me these games for free and cool and the cloud streaming. But then also let me just buy a game. Like if I want to play Spider-Man 2, let me play Spider-Man 2 rather than just saying, well, you can play Spider-Man Miles Morales because that's in the PlayStation Plus game
Yeah,
catalog.
yeah, I hear you. I don't know. I think they've got a lot of cleaning up to do before any of this is anywhere close to what Xbox is already doing, and that's such a tough thing because I think that they're trying to be two companies, right? They're trying to be who they are now and maximize the amount of profit and success you can while this is still the business model, and also set themselves up for the future that Microsoft is trying to create, right? And
Well,
like,
speaking of Microsoft, like Andy Rand's right in with a point. The interesting thing about the PS5 revision is a different road. Sony and Microsoft are going. Xbox leak is digital only Series X, and they said it was an adorably all digital console. And Sony giving people the option. Do you think Microsoft changed their plans a little bit? Because the reaction around this seems to be pointing towards the leak and saying, "Well, Microsoft's going all digital. Sony's still giving us the choice. Can I just shove in a USB drive and play a game on Xbox and install it that way? Or do they stand their ground and go, you're playing on Game Pass anyway. We've looked at the numbers. None of you people are buying physical anymore. It's like 70%
I
digital.
I feel like the argument for them then becomes, well, you buy the one with the disk drive if you want a disk drive.
But the one with the disk drive is going away. This is a Series X.
Oh, this is gonna replace it.
It's replacing the Series X.
Oh, that's
At
in
least according to the FTC leak, it was a replacement for the Series X, the new Brooklyn model of Xbox Series X.
hmm. I don't feel comfortable commenting on that without knowing more information because I don't know that I believe that. That they're
Okay.
that they're gonna totally phase it out, you know?
I mean, maybe they won't. I mean, that seemed to be
I mean,
the
it could be what you
strategy.
said where they just sell an attachment of some kind.
Yeah, like, but that wasn't mentioned anywhere in their plans.
Yeah.
It was all digital version. And it
Which
says
again, that makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that they would make a version that is targeted for Game Pass and that is not worried about physical. But like, I don't know. They I don't know. I don't know.
well, they say it's
It's
more
interesting.
internal storage, 2 terabytes, all new, more immersive controller, which also leaked, and the same great price of $499, but now adorably all digital.
I mean, I guess you can just force people to be like, look, we don't do that anymore moving forward. But
Yeah, and it's like, are you going to upgrade to this if you've got the disc version? No, probably not. It's like a slim version in the same way that the PS5
Yeah,
is.
but
You've got
that's
the
the thing though,
option.
is like if you replace it, then that's a whole other thing. Then you're saying that moving forward, we're not supporting that. But then it's like people are still making physical games because I bought one with the disc drive. And if I want to still buy, it's like
That seems to be the strategy that was outlined in the FTC document, but it's possible that this document, as Phil Spencer said, they're old
they're
plans.
out of date,
It could
right?
have
So,
changed.
and that's the thing is like, I'm sure that that's the thing they entertained. I just don't necessarily see them committing to that, you know?
I could easily see them saying it's 4.99, no disk drive, you get 2 terabytes of storage, and you can plug in this attachment or any Blu-ray drive that you want, and that lets you play your old games, your 360 games, your original Xbox games, your Xbox One games, like those games you can play
Yeah.
because you've bought the attachable disk drive.
Yeah. And I think that would be fine. So, I mean,
And
I guess,
that's something they could easily correct and change now that they've seen Sony's plans. Because they're not planning this until next year, next November, apparently.
right. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. A couple other little details, just to, in case you're wondering, Sony has confirmed that the PS5 Slim will still support expandable storage. So any of the expandable storage solutions that we've come to know, like, will continue to work. So that's all well and good. And then we also do have kind of the last little piece of PlayStation news before we move on here is that the PlayStation accessibility controller, the Access controller is what they call it, has a release date. It's coming out on December 6th of this year, right around the corner. And it's going to be retailing for $89.99 in the States. And yeah, great to have the option. Obviously Xbox
Yeah,
has been
really cool.
ahead of them for a while on this one, but good to see that they finally got a solution for folks who need, different options.
Yeah, I'd like to see if this is compatible with PC. Presumably, it will be in the same way that the DualSense is compatible with PC, because
Yeah,
then
I don't
that's
see why
even
not,
more
right?
options. Yeah, but I know that the accessibility controller has been really popular with people that need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a thing we've talked about a lot on this show, right? Like it's great to see the industry over the last couple of years take accessibility more seriously.
Especially Sony, right? Like, like God of War's changes, for example, and like talking with people in the community. I know you and Max had I can't remember his name,
Sightless
but
Combat.
he had Sightless Combat on to talk about God of
Go
War
listen
and
to that episode if you haven't. Great episode. He was a really
mhm.
great guest. Yeah, it's great. And I mean, like with Naughty Dog and all the stuff they did with Last of Us, and like how you've seen kind of the standard that they set now be applied across the newer games and everything. Like, yeah, it's really good to see. It's really good to see, and like something I noticed when I like booted up Mortal Kombat 1, which I always appreciate, is like, they're another game that had the text to speech on by default, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, the Ubisoft do that in all their games now
Yep.
as well, which is really cool.
It's just how it should be, right? Because it takes, as an able-bodied gamer, it took 2 seconds for me to hit circle and be like, I'm good, I don't need it, or B, I don't need it. Cool. But if you did need it, you'd need and this is something Sightless talked about, is you need a person there to do it. And if you don't, if
Mhm.
they're not there, you're not playing your game. It's bullshit. Like that's awful, right? So it's super cool to see more of these companies double down and make a genuine effort to make games more approachable for everybody, because we all love the hobby so much, right? And it's like I hate to think that that anybody is going to be edged out of it, for whatever reason. All right. So we got some more to talk about in the back half this week. So we're going to move on. But if you guys want to let us know what you think about the new model of the PlayStation 5, or your thoughts on the price increase or any of the other stuff kind of going on around it, right? Make sure you write in. Just like, there's FlipScreen.games. That's a website. You can find links to all the ways that you can get involved in the show. You can join our Discord. You can write into the show with questions at FlipScreen.games, or you can head over to our Patreon if you want to go above and beyond and show your support, just like our Patreon producers for the month of October. Of course, this episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast is brought to you by none other than Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Sobi, Pilkey, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. Y'all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. I want to take a very special opportunity again for the last time to apologize to one Pilkey because on last week's show, I had not updated the document. We did not list him as a Patreon producer, so he has gotten a extra special shout out on every show for the last week. So for the last time, sorry for missing you last week, Pilkey. Thank you for the support. And I'm going to pull this question that you wrote in for the question block. Pilkey wrote in over on our Discord just like you can and said any mobile games except Marvel Snap that you regularly play or played previously. I never really play mobile games much anymore, although I just started Slay the Spire on iOS. Although, of course, that is a port from another platform.
Yeah, I'm not a big mobile gamer either, so I was having a look through. I do have Apple Arcade, so I sometimes download stuff from there. I really used to love playing Mini Motorways. I don't know if you ever played that one. That one's really cool.
I feel like you told me about it, but I
Yeah,
never.
you like plan a city and stuff. It's like really cool. It was the follow-up to Mini Metro, which I really liked as well.
Okay.
But the thing I play most on my phone is Sudoku. I'm really old and I just play Sudoku. And I also play some of the New York Times word games. Wordle was on my Game of the Year list last year. There might be another New York Times game on my Game of the Year list this year.
God, you're 100. uh, So yeah, obviously, like you said, Marvel Snap is kind of my game of choice now. But before that came along, I was playing Magic the Gathering. It's called MTG Arena, and I was playing that for quite some time. That was kind of my mobile game before that. And aside from that, like I've had odd ones that I've engaged with for some amount of time, but they never really generally have the depth to hook me for long. Like I've tried every game that Nintendo put out on mobile except for Mario Run. Um, just because I don't like Infinite Runners and I wasn't gonna pay $10 for it. Like
Mhm.
I played Pokemon Go in 2016, the summer of Pokemon Go, and that was a great experience at the time, but it wasn't something that I felt like I compelled to keep doing. I tried Pikmin Bloom when it came out. It's just a walking device,
It's the
it's like
same version. It's like Niantic just make the same game constantly, and I don't
I mean,
understand
that's
it.
not
It's
even the
like
same though. It's literally like it's Google Fit, but like it's more work. It's like I don't know. I'm not interested. And like I played Fire Emblem Heroes for a little bit, but eventually I bounced off of it. Like that's kind of Animal Crossing Pocket Camp was the same thing. I
no,
played it for
I never get into any of those. I'm just like, I'd rather just boot up Animal Crossing. If I'm gonna play that, like if I'm gonna
that
play a
came
Fire
out
Emblem game,
That came out in that in between period though, where like,
yeah.
like I was emotionally moved on from New Leaf. I wanted something new, and it was like it worked for a little while, but that's the thing is like every one of those games, I play them for a certain amount of time, and then eventually it's just like it's not deep enough for me to want to keep investing time in it. I played another one that I do remember though is I played Fallout, like the Vault Manager that they
Oh,
put
that
out.
was really good.
That's a
Yeah,
good
that was
that's a
good.
good game. That's a good management game.
That
Um,
runs well on Switch as well. So if
I
you
only
prefer
stopped
playing
playing
with
that
controls,
because I had been playing it for months, and then I had a bunch of bad stuff happen, and my whole settlement like failed, and I was like, all right, well, that's it. That's my
mm,
time with this game, right? Like I'm not gonna build another one. But I
I
liked it.
I
Florence
remember
is a game I will shout out though. That is a
that's good.
single
Yeah,
player story. That game
that's
is
on
amazing.
that one's on Apple Arcade as well. It's worth
Play it
checking out.
anywhere you can. I think it's on
Yeah.
Switch too at this point. Like play
Um,
Florence. Florence is great.
I love that the Apple Arcade just brings back classics now. Like, you remember Jetpack Joyride? There's a sequel
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
Apple Arcade. I
What was
also
that
really
game?
love
What was that Apple Arcade game that you turned me on to? Grindstone?
Yeah, really great game.
That game
Grindstone's phenomenal.
rules. That game
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah, Grindstone's great. I play a lot of the Kairosoft games as well. I don't know if you ever played any of those, like Game Dev Tycoon.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
love
I played
that
that on
game.
PC.
Yeah, they do a ton of them. So they've got like Zoo Park Story, Cafe Master Story. They're all basically a riff on the same thing. Like, you're just running a different thing. But I really like them. I think they're fun. Game Dev Tycoon, I often go back to. I think it's a
Nice.
good game.
Nice. Yeah, I think aside from that, I had an era where I was a real Tetris multiplayer on specifically my phone. I still love Tetris, but I had it on like my first several phones. It would be like, can I buy Tetris on this thing? I'm buying Tetris on this thing.
Yeah, I used to. I think, Tetris Effect and Tetris 99 have become my 2 favorite ways to play
Yeah,
Tetris,
I'd rather
and
play it with buttons, you know.
with buttons, yeah, or, in
But that's the
VR,
thing.
Tetris Effect is phenomenal.
On a lot of my old, like on the old, like I was playing it on like flip phones that had buttons,
Yeah, a bit of Snake on there as well. Great. Bejeweled was classic back in the day as well.
a friend of mine in high school, he's still my friend, but back in high school we had a study hall together, and we would race each other in Tetris, like, and it was a great time, a lot of fun. All right, so here's the thing, Steve. We've been going 55 minutes. The
Mm.
folks want to hear us talk about what we're playing. They want to hear me talk about Mortal Kombat. Do you have time for that?
I do, but you also did talk about Mortal Kombat 1 last week, and I don't know if the Largo embargo is aware of that, because
That's true.
I remember you told me all about how, like, such and such is now someone's brother and
Yeah,
this,
we
that,
got
and the
into it a
other,
little
like.
bit last week.
Mm. Have you played any more of it this week? Like, let's talk
Oh, I
about. I
finished
wanna
it.
touch on. You finished it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, how are you feeling about it? Was it good? Did it live up to your expectations?
All right, so here's the thing, Largo. I'm going to give you this is my official because last week is just impressions. I'm kind of getting
Mm.
my feet wet right now. Today, as of this recording, I rolled credits on the story, and I've played a ton of some of the other single player modes. I haven't played much online or anything like that yet, but some of the non-story single player stuff, very very cool, and I like it a lot. So yeah, I'm very high on this game. I like it a lot. I think it is not groundbreaking in the way that the previous trilogy was, I think like Mortal Kombat 9 was a really huge revival for that franchise, and it really brought it back to prominence in a major way. And I think since then it's kind of been like rinse repeat a little bit of like, here's the new, we got new fatalities, we got new animations, there's a, whatever. It was an ongoing story, all that stuff, right? It was just like we're doing the sequel thing. And this feels like a huge reboot and refresh when it comes to story and everything, but the actual like
The
moment to moment.
moment gameplay is similar.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the bottom line with that is if you like Mortal Kombat and if you like the modern trilogy, then there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like at some point, it's kind of like we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? We just want more. We want new. We want fresh. And
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Mario Kart was the same, right? There's only so many times you can change things
it's the
before
eighth
you're just
fucking
like, "We've
one,
nailed
right?
the formula in," yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what are you gonna do?
Double Dash was good. That was a good riff, like, and
It
it's
happens.
you've kind of got that in Mortal Kombat, can't you swap in and out? It's like the Mortal
Uh,
Kombat Double Dash.
you can't swap, but you've got a character that you can like call in as like they jump in and do a hit for you kind of thing.
Oh, is it like trophies in, Smash kinda thing?
Kind of. It's a lot like like Marvel versus Capcom. You'll have like the multiple fighters, and like you can hold the button and they'll switch to the other fighter. But if you just
Mhm.
press it, or if you press like a certain different combinations, they'll just come out and do a little attack and like back you up. It's like in there's like Iron Man will come out and he'll shoot a beam or whatever, right? Cap throws sword or his shield, and it's like that, but you can't switch. So it's like they'll be like you can have Scorpion do his pull, right? And like you can use that to set up a combo, or like, you can use like somebody will have like an interruption, things like that. Or like they'll come in and do like a big hit, a big kick, something like that. Um, it's a cameo system. And it's pretty good. I got more into it as I played more. And I think like now that I'm in the single player modes, I forget what it's called, but there's a single player mode. It's like seasonal content, and you're in this kind of like
So is that Invasion? Season 1 of Invasions?
yeah, it is Invasions. It is Invasions, and it's like this
I only
top.
know that because there was a 27 gigabyte Switch update today that finally brought that mode to
There
the
you
Switch.
go. Oh, that was the mode that was missing. That's a serious omission. That's like
Yeah.
a huge chunk of content once you beat the story.
Yeah, that was
Um,
missing.
so that's like I think that's gonna have an interaction with the season pass and like all the downloadable characters that are coming and stuff, which I'm excited for. Um, but you're in this like top down mode, right? Where like it starts off and you're like in Johnny, uh, what's his last name? Oh my god, it's not Johnny Cage, is it? I think it's Johnny Cage. I'm a little tired and I'm struggling to pull that one right now. Um,
It's Johnny
but
Cage,
I was right. There you go. I never doubted myself.
otherwise known as Jonathan Carlson, apparently.
There you go. So you're in his like mansion, and it's like you're going from like space to space, almost like it's a board game. And it's like each, space or each other space, there'll be like a fight you have to get through, and some of them will have like special conditions or whatever. It'll be like, oh, you can't use this move, you have to use this move, whatever, that kind of thing. And it's great. I mean, it's a really good, like, for folks that are more like me and like maybe don't want to go on and like grind and ladder on multiplayer, and you're not necessarily trying to like get that deep with it. You just kind of want to enjoy the combat of Mortal Kombat and just have fun with it. It's great for that. And like you unlock a lot of really cool customizable content that way. Like in the main story, you'll get it. Like when you hit certain milestones, it'll be like you get a different mask or you get a different whatever. And it's like you can get like the classic character loadout or, like the old design, stuff like that. Um, and this seems to be where you unlock the bulk of them. And it's really cool that that's like in a single player gameplay mode and not
Is that
like,
gonna be enough for you to buy, like, a season pass and come back again next season for some more content, do you think?
um, I don't know. I think it depends because I know that like there's supposedly going to be an interaction with, like I said, with the DLC characters, and one of the DLC characters is a character from my favorite comic book, and it's like an independent comic series, and like it's Invincible is the name of the series, and it just got like an animated series like 2 years ago now, and the
Mhm.
second season's about to come out. So it's like it's got some increased cultural relevance, and like seeing this character in Mortal Kombat, right, is like huge, for like it's a thing I never thought would happen with this IP. So like if they have like a cool costume for him that I could get or something like that, I could see myself jumping back in and being like, yeah, like I want the invincible stuff, or I want this, or I want that, whatever. Or if there's like Scorpion's my main, right? If there's like it's like I love this Scorpion costume, I could see myself doing that and grinding it out and jumping back in for the fun of it. Here and there. I don't necessarily see myself playing like every season and like, trying to do something like that, but I could
That's just not who you are as a gamer, though, like, you
nah.
you have, like, yeah, broad tastes, just ta like, on that one game.
No, yeah, I kinda like to get my taste or get my fill and then move
I
on.
wanna know what your fill is on Starfield. Like, where are you at with that? I was expecting to hear more about it last week, and, we didn't get to
I'm
it,
ready to give
so
you an update. I'm ready to give you
I
an update.
kinda just want, yeah, let's just have a quick update before we wrap up.
Just to put a pin in the Mortal Kombat stuff, this game is, I think, gonna rank higher on my top for the year than I expected ahead of it because it was a really good palate cleanser.
Oh.
It's a really good palate cleanser. I think it's a really fun game, and if you want something, like, short and, like, fun, like, the story just has that fucking perfect Saturday morning cartoon Silver Age comic book energy to it. There was a point where Sarah like came in on a cutscene and like she had not seen any of it, and she was like, I have no fucking idea what's happening. And I was like, these action figures are running around saving their friends. It's all right. Just leave it alone. So I highly recommend it. I think if you're excited about it, pick it up. So for Starfield, I've been on hiatus from it for a bit because of course I
Mm.
went on my vacation. That kind of broke, the flow. And then when I came back, Mortal Kombat was out. I knew folks wanted to hear my opinion about it. I picked that up. I beat that. Was kind of chipping away at that off and on. And that was kind of, where most of my gaming time went the last week and change.
Okay,
Um,
well, before we continue, full spoilers for Starfield, so
full spoilers.
if you are not finished the game or you're very sensitive to spoilers, probably hop off the show
Yeah.
now because this will be the last game we talk about.
So, but to give you an idea of like what I've been doing, like I finished the Vanguard quest.
Good
I
quest.
Great
Really
quest.
loved that quest.
Great quest. Really fun. Lots of good twists and turns too.
And such good for world building. Like, you learn so much from that.
Yeah.
That dude still alive down in the basement. Not good.
Fucking crazy. What a reveal. That was awesome, you know? And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, because it's like, I feel like from the beginning, it's like, oh, like, there's this interesting mystery, and it's like, what's happening? Why is it happening? Like, whatever, whatever. That's all
Mhm.
cool. But then like, it just keeps getting deeper, and you're like, there's a real level of intrigue here, you know?
So you
Um,
so you got Penthouse now then?
yeah, yeah. So,
You filled it up with anything?
not really.
I
Like,
went to it once and then never went back.
that was kind of the last big thing I did was, like, I finished that quest line, and then it was like, "I'm going on vacation." All right? So it's like, I kinda need to get back into it, and I'll probably futz
Mhm.
around with it a little bit, but
I know we spoke about the Ryujin quest line. Did you ever do that one as well? Did you ever
no,
get
I'm
to
planning on doing that next.
Okay.
And I think I'm probably gonna get back to the game in earnest tonight because I'm gonna have some free time and all the other like, I'm kinda, like, had my fill of Mortal Kombat for now. Um, so I think I'm ready to jump back in, and I think I'm gonna do that next. And then I'm gonna try to, like, identify what other stuff I'm interested in doing for my first run and then start moving probably towards wrapping up because I'm already, like, 30 plus hours in and, like, I wanna get what New Game Plus is about, and, like, I probably will do another run, but probably not until, like, our winter break because there's all these other games coming up, and I really don't wanna end up in a situation where I'm not done with Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm not done with Baldur's Gate, and I'm not done with Starfield, and then I start Spider-Man and Mario, like, I just
Yeah, like, I'm done with Starfield. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to finish Tears of the Kingdom. I really wanna get back and finish Baldur's Gate. I just don't think I've got time to finish both of those games, and Baldur's Gate really gripped me more
yeah,
than Tears of the Kingdom did. That story was just so good, the level of depth in it, like, I think if I'm comparing those 2 games, Baldur's Gate probably edges out Tears of the Kingdom for me as my favorite of the 2 games, which I didn't expect. I
I'm not
thought
prepared
Tears of the Kingdom had a lock.
I'm not prepared to comment on any of that yet, honestly. I'm still not sure, and, like, I think going back to Tears I think you need to play it a little bit more.
I will be going back to it before we make
Yeah,
decisions, yeah,
even if you don't finish it, because I
yeah.
think it's so easy to be removed from it and
Oh,
forget how
yeah,
much
100%, and there's recency bias, like,
yeah.
I'd finished Starfield, and that was my favorite
Like, dude,
game,
I'll
I'm
tell you
sure
what,
when I
like,
finished Baldur's
I
Gate.
was listening back to the episode we did, just like a little clip of it,
Mhm.
of when we were talking about Tears of the Kingdom, and it's like, I don't know, man. I think you gotta play it again, to, like, remind
Yeah, I
yourself of
know,
how good it
I
was.
know.
Because like, we were going on about it's like, "This game's fucking transcendent, man," and I think it is, like, I definitely think it lives up to that still. So, I don't know. It's tough, man. It's really tough, but I feel like I gotta wrap up on Starfield, with the knowledge I know I'm gonna play it again, it's like, I gotta do
Yeah, I wanna know what decision you make at the end. I think you have to kind of make the decision as to, am I gonna try New Game Plus now? I think you need to at least make that choice and try just the beginning of New Game Plus if you're gonna
yeah,
if you know you're gonna play it a second time, make a save, do New Game Plus, and then you can always go back to your previous save if you wanted to.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at with it. Like, I think I'm getting to a point where, like, I know there's so much more to do, and I want to do so much more, but I also feel like I know
You
I'm
could
getting
always, like, rush the main quest and be like, "Let's
yeah,
find out what it's about."
yeah, and it's like I've done a good amount of side stuff already, so I'm just kind of like I want to do a few more big side quests and really
I mean, I
get my
hadn't done Ryujin in my main run through, it was in New Game Plus, and I regretted not doing it because it would have been so helpful to have what you
yeah,
get at the end of that quest line. But I think it's fine. I think you can just do the main story if you wanted to.
yeah.
But I'm
I'm gonna do.
interested. I'm looking forward to talking to you more about that game because fuck, I loved it. So good.
I really am excited to do spoiler cast at the end of the year. I think that doing that as like a series is going to be really rewarding. And yeah,
I can only really be in one of them at the moment. I've only finished Starfield. I haven't finished any of the other games.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think you can sit in and jump out,
Yeah.
or whatever.
I
Because like
mean, the same with you, though, right? You haven't finished Tears of the Kingdom or Baldur's Gate. I know you did Final Fantasy,
I
but
finished
it's been
that.
tough. Yeah.
Finished Mortal Kombat. I've finished a good amount of games. It's just like there are a couple games that are just sitting over my head. Like that
Mhm.
are I think is going to be the problem. But I think by the end of the year, I think I'll have finished quite a few. Because I
Yeah.
tallied it up earlier, and I was like, I beat more games than I remembered beating this year for sure.
Me
There's
too.
been
I've
so
played
fucking
more
many of
games
them.
than I remembered playing. I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, shit, that came out this year." Then, you got Mario, Mario Wonder coming out in the next couple of weeks, and I'm like and
Spider-Man.
also Spider-Man, and fuck, it's like, it's tough.
Yeah, dude. It's like and, like, I know I gotta start wrapping stuff up, or it's like I'm just not gonna it's gonna get more and more on top of me, and I'm gonna get to the end of the year and be trying to make these decisions based on not having finished everything, and I just don't wanna do
Sometimes I think that's fine. Like, I think you can, for some games, make decisions whether you finished or not. I never finished, Elden Ring, but I knew that it was my game of the year last year.
Yeah, and it's like, I know that I might just have to accept that at some point, that I'm not gonna get to play
I mean,
100% of what I
it's
want.
like we looked at Baldur's Gate, it was like 40 hours to finish just the main story, It's like, there's only so many hours you've got, It's like
Yeah.
that, for Tears of the Kingdom, for Spider-Man, it's like, you're gonna have to make a choice as to which one am I gonna dedicate time to.
Well, for Baldur's Gate, it was such a thing for me too of like, this is so long, like I can beat Starfield first, like
Yeah, yeah, it's like Starfield, I was vibing with it so much, I
I wanna
just
just take
wanted
my
to keep
time with
playing.
Baldur's Gate, and I was playing it on Steam Deck and I wanna play it on PlayStation, like, it's just like it wasn't optimal, so I'm like, "I'm loving this so much, let me just remove myself from it and come back to it when I've got more bandwidth for it." And it's like, I don't regret that decision, but I'm also like, "Man, like, if I don't finish that, I might not finish the best game of the year, and then, like, what is my
Mhm.
game?" It's like, that's the thing I don't like about it. It's like, I know that I don't need to finish everything to have an opinion on it or whatever, but for, like, games that I'm like, "This might be my favorite game of the year. This might be one of my favorite games of all time," like, you gotta fucking roll credits on it, and I know you don't, but I have to. It's that sense of completion is important to me, and it's like, it's like, I feel like my brain itching that I'm not done with them, It's like,
Yeah. It's tough, it's tough. I'm sure you'll figure it out. And, we'll talk more about other games we're playing next week, but if you wanna hear some stuff that I've been playing, go listen to the Steam Deck podcast. We're gonna talk about some of the Next Fest demos. I'll be talking about some of the games I've been emulating, Switch emulation performance in Steam OS 3.5, or emulation performance in general in Steam OS 3.5, because I wanted to check it out and how it compared. So you can go listen to that over on the Steam Deck podcast this week.
make sure you go tune in, check it out. So that's where we're going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast. Remember, you want to show your support, you want to write into the show, you want to keep the conversation rolling between episodes. However, you want to choose to get involved, show your support, or just tune into some of the other shows. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find all the places we are all over the web, and much more. So, thank you for tuning in for another episode. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.